What's up guys, this is ScherBR talking, welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I'll be making a full review for the Romancing Festival Matriarch banner that brings an updated version of Matriarch that is now a much better fast buffer that also gives buffs when people attack. Paulus, that is a multi-purpose debuffer that helps everyone in the party debuff. Thorpe, a counter specialist but also a defense booster. Well, we're going to start talking about Matriarch because she gives the name to the banner and she is a very good style. Updating the strategies of buffs again, she is very fast. You can see 110% agility. She has 113 STR, but her damage is very bad. She will not be doing much damage. She has 89% endurance and 92% will. Those values are pretty okay, nothing stellar, but is enough to keep her sustained. But there is just one problem with Will that I'll be talking about later. She does have 80% love and her heals are very powerful as well because of this. Moving on, she starts the fight with 12 BP and by the end of a turn she gets extra 3 for a total of 6 because of 2 different passives. Also on the start of a turn she grants this Tone of Hope to all surviving allies, including herself. When attacking, your characters will be buffing all status by 20%, max of 2 times. Okay, when attacking, Matriarch is not included because, I mean, she can attack, but most of the time she will not be attacking. So that's where I said that there can be some will problem if the fight is balanced to use Matriarch. If she's not attacking, she's not buffing extra values. But, well, you can also fix this by giving her the best equipment, promoting her the most, and all. So this thing here is amazing because it's both offense and defense. If you can buff in a fight, or like the boss allows you to keep buffing, you will be increasing your damage output, you'll be increasing your endurance and will to take less and less damage, love and charisma to heal better, and it works for all types of squads. So it is an extra of 20% for characters that only have one attack, but it is an extra of 40% when you have chase attacks or also extra attacks on overdrive. Aligned with her normal buffs, this can reach very high potential. Now, at the end of every 5 turns, counting from the start of battle, she will restore the use of Heaven's Heal. That's her skill that can heal, revive, and buff. We'll be discussing this more later, and it's a very important skill, and she can be your main healer in many fights. Now, on start of a turn, she grants attack boost and defense boost of 15%. Well, defense boost is the most important one because it decreases damage taken and it's not as much as Screw Guard at 20%, but well, this works even if someone dies. Then she gets a damage increase of 20% and when attacked, damage will be reduced by 30. On odd turns, counting from the start of battle, well, we have turn 1, we will be buffing all status by 15% of all surviving allies. That's good because it gives you a little bit of extra will. Some fights you find enemies that have high chance to apply ailments right on start, so this can help in turn 1, 3, 5 and beyond. Now on even turns, counting from start of battle, you will be then recovering all surviving allies HP by very small effect. Well, this one here is just an extra, helps here and there. It's not exactly as reliable as some other characters like Syrah that always heals on the end of a turn, but, well, it's good nonetheless. Okay, so damage is really non-existent, we only have 20% damage increase, and she is a character with lower offensive status anyway. Now, the first skill is called Paean of Exaltation. This is a fast support skill that will be buffing STR, Endurance, Intelligence, and Will by 30% if you max level. Well, 30% is higher than 25. That is small. It starts on 25, so you have to level up. I have a video where I explain how to level up support skills. And why is this so much better than before? Because we are finally buffing both defensive status, Endurance and Will on the same time. Remember her past styles? We had Paean of Victory that would buff STR, Endurance, Agility, and Intelligence. Agility is a status that we use for evasion, but right now it's mostly used to increase martial arts damage, or to attack before the enemy. But remember that we kept the STR, we kept the Intelligence, we kept the Endurance, and switched Agility for Will. Will was something that we could buff with her third style, with Paean of Peace. And because of that, we had an era where we were using characters with dexterity status, like Leon. And we were also buffing Love and Charisma by accident. Now, we are not buffing Love and Charisma. Those status are not exactly very needed to buff, especially because her heal is already too powerful. So we are kind of keeping the best thing of all her styles, but just not keeping dexterity buffs. But just remember that even if you're not buffing dexterity with the Beacon of Exaltation, dexterity-based units are still buffing themselves because of Ton of Hope. That's very useful because people like Leon, that already attack multiple times, you already get 20% status buff when attacking the first time, and then 20% status buff when attacking the second time. This Leon here attacks like a plenty of times, and all other Leons with charge bullets, they will get that dexterity buff nonetheless. This works for any other dexterity-based unit or any other type of character. Martial arts units will also benefit a lot from buffs, and people like Alkaiser that are harder to get status from buffs because he needs both STR and agility will also be much stronger when using together with Matriarch. So it's a very good combo, and we are keeping the best stuff here. Endurance and Will on the same buff, and being fast means that we'll go before the enemy attack, and many times I had to restart fights because enemies will just apply ailments on turn 2. They will still do that sometimes, but Matriarch decreases the chance of things like that happening. So for 5 VP means that she always has enough VP available, something that didn't happen in all of her past styles. Sometimes she only had 4 VP with a skill costing 5 and she will eventually run out. Now, in this design, she always has enough to use Beacon of Exaltation and will even get some extra VP to use something else in different turns. Now, the second skill is called Heaven's Heal. This is a very powerful skill. It's fast, it's recovery, meaning that it can revive as well and recover HP of all allies, and it says that it has the power, but the power when used, it means like close to 3000 HP heal with Matriarch status and fully maxed. So, it's almost from 0 to max already. And because people are already self-buffing when they are attacking, they are also buffing Love and Charisma, and they will receive higher heals. It says that you can only use this 2 times per battle. Okay, but then we have that charge every 5 turns. So, let's say that you are in a fight that you have to heal every 2 turns. She can heal on turn 2, turn 4, and then on turn 6. If the fight can be solved in those many turns, you are set. But not all fights will allow you to, well, finish the fight in 6 turns. So Matriarch will combo well with other healers as well. That can also reduce a little bit of her stress. And people like, for example, Liz will help her because Liz will give heal every turn with her Dragon's Blessing that also gives defense boost. But she also combos super well with people like Anya. 2 very powerful meta characters. Anya gives an end of turn heal, this will reduce the stress, and she also gives defense boosts and morale down to the enemies while also buffing. So usually Anya combos even better with Matriarch than Liz, but depends on what you are lacking. BP generation, heals, because Liz is still a very good healer and she heals every 3 turns. So on turns that have number 3, you would not need to heal with Matriarch. You would just rely on Liz healing on the start of turn. Okay, so we are discussing the Mesta supports right now because people still use them and they will be used for a little more time. Now, like I said, the heal is just so good that you will be healing from 0 to max. And if you decide to use Heaven's Heal, it's just 6 BP. She has 6 BP all the time. And the buff effect is from 30 on rank 1 to 40 on max rank. Meaning that even if you don't train this skill at all, you are still buffing the same or higher values as Beacon of Exaltation for at least those 4 status, but also buffing everything else. You're not losing anything. In the past, when you decided to heal with Matriarch, you needed to use Shining Glory, that will buff different status, or you need to use Beacon of Protection, that will give evasion, but will not buff. Sometimes you will get ailments because of lack of buffs. So this is a fix to her gameplay again. Now, the third skill is called White Spear. It's a single target attack with pierce and stun damage, critical to undead and demon, that attacks random enemies 3 times. Well, The damage is very lacking, but she then grants all surviving allies an attack boost that increases damage potential by 15% for 2 turns on each hit. That means that she gives a total of 45% attack boost. It can help if you know that you can stop buffing for 1 turn and the next turn is an overdrive turn. So you increase the damage of everyone's a little. On the next turn, I suggest you to use either Heaven's Heal or Paean of Exaltation on overdrive, because this means that you'll be buffing before you attack. Because using White Spear again does not really mean she will go before the other enemies. Although her agility is very high, doesn't mean that it will really benefit. Okay, so now we have 3 different skills that are always useful. I believe that her best inheritance is still Paean of Protection, because that evasion can help you in some specific turns, but it costs 2 LP. But with this, you can still heal plenty. If the fight does not have LP damage, you can decide to use Paean of Protection when you don't have a cast of Heaven's Heal. You can still inherit Paean of Peace if you so want to use a full dexterity build squad, because you keep the will status, but you lose the endurance status. Let's say that you are fighting a boss that uses spells. That means that it's just okay. And I don't think any other inheritance means too much. You can use Paean of Heart Throw, but the current game with Liz and Enya, I don't see much value on this unless you have very good BP generation with other styles. And Paean of Tranquility theoretically would also work, but with so many defense specialists and HP healers, this is really not necessary. So it's a character that works by itself, does not need inheritance from past styles, just becomes better with either Shining Glory or Paean of Protection for extra heals. But Matriarch is the future of buff, because you are buffing fast, you buff extra when attacking, but in the end, if a boss does not allow you to buff, even then Matriarch usually works. Many times, boss will remove your buffs by start of turn, so Matriarch applies it right after, and when people are attacking, if they are fast enough, they will still get some benefit from buffs. But in the end, it's all about boss design. She will be the best character to use in most scenarios, but sometimes boss will just counter Matriarch design. But nonetheless, she's a very good style and receives an OP grade in my opinion. Matriarch has another style on JP, but this one is more designed after defense boosts. Also has a skill and passive that allows people to reduce damage taken when they resist, and even a chance to evade and increase their damage as well. She has much better damage than the current version of Matriarch, does not clash, is just use it on different situations. The next character is Paulus, and Paulus got some good buffs on global. He has 122% STR, that's not a bad status at all. Endurance is 84 and Will is 85. Not in the danger zone, but could be higher. His agility is 96%. He needs high agility because he is a debuffer, but the way he works doesn't really relies on just agility. Intelligence is 90%, could have been much higher. This can be a problem sometimes. Now, moving for passives, on start of turn, he gives all surviving allies, including himself, this passive called Impair Measures. Impair Measures is a very good passive. When you are landing a direct attack, you will debuff the enemy STR and Endurance by 5%, next times 2. Because, well, again, comparing to Matriarch, if your character attacks 2 times because of a chase attack or even more than that, it will stop on the second trigger. So one character can debuff STR and Endurance by 10% at max. And if the enemy uses the Fly weakness by the end of turn, then your character is fast. This is actually a very good strategy. But when you are landing in an indirect attack, then you'll be debuffing Intelligence and Will by 5% max times 2. Let's say we are using someone like Jo. Jo attacks indirectly, and she can attack 1, 2, or 3 times. Meaning that and most she will debuff 10% by debuffing the physical or magical resistance of the enemy as well. You will be increasing damage output, but not by much. It's more important when we are discussing the STR or intelligence of an enemy, since this will decrease damage taken. Paulus can use both direct and indirect attacks, and there are some characters that have a mix of direct and indirect attacks as well, so they can trigger even 2 times the first part and 2 times the second part. But that's kinda rare. You will not see that much often. Okay, and then when landing an attack, you have 50% chance to chase with Meteor Strike Plus. Meteor Strike Plus is a very good skill because this is triple S power, it's just blunt damage, and when the attack hits, there is a chance, so it relies on his intelligence to debuff the enemy STR and intelligence by 15%, because this is used on rank 1. He then has another 50% chance to chase with World Crasher. That is a double S power attack, this time with Blunt and Shadow, that has a chance to debuff the enemy's Dexterity and Agility, this time by 20% on rank 1. So that's also very interesting because we are now covering all offensive status. Look, STR and Intelligence, then Dexterity and Agility, covering every type of enemy damage, but you have 50% chance to chase only. This is not a guarantee, and both attacks are direct, meaning that it will trigger his STR and Endurance debuff. At least once, sometimes twice. Okay, because of having two chases, you can say that Paulus has good enough damage, but he's not really a nuker or anything like that. But look, he gets hit up on start of turn, 20% damage increase for the whole fight, for a total of 100% increase on turn 5. He has also 5 EP per turn always. This is useful for his cycle. He then gets another 30% damage increase for a total of 130% potential, and when attacked, damage is reduced by 30%. Now, skill number 1 is Sucker Strike Plus. This is free and has the power, and when the attack lands, has a chance of debuffing the enemy's STR by up to 15% on max rank. Well, it is 15%, but you already has another 5% extra just from Paulus alone, so that's already good enough in some situations. For free, well, you can't complain. The second skill is Earthquake Strike. This is a full AoE attack, and it's indirect. In this case, Paulus will be debuffing Intelligence and Will by 5%, and then this will remove all targets' buffs. It's a buff break to AoE. It's interesting because it's just the second one that we have when you consider that the first was Arsenal. And, well, you can say that you also have that with Shiel, but Shiel version of buff break is kind of crazy. It is Vortex that also removes your all buffs, so it can be dangerous or not useful at all, depending on the situation. And Vassalt's a very old unit that people don't use anymore, so Paulus carries the best version of the skill for now. But we also have Sirius very soon that has a similar mechanic for buff break. Since this uses 7 and he has 5, he cannot use this every turn unless he has extra help from other characters to give him BP. Damage is really not important, it's just the power, so, well, he will do more damage if he chases, though. The third skill is World Crasher, the same one as the chase. This is a double S power attack that costs 10 BP, Blunt and Shadow, and when the attack hits, you have a chance to debuff the enemy's Dexterity and Agility, this time by 30% if you max level. So, very interesting that you can open with World Crasher and then use Sucker Strike and keep this cycle if you don't need buff break or if you are using another buff breaker, like Esper. That is still the best buff breaker in the game because of use of Witch Trick. That is an awesome skill that will always remove buffs and also always debuffs the enemies by 15%. When using Aspergal, she also has chance to chase, meaning that she will be debuffing the enemy by another 5% or by another 10%. So Paulus is a character that can be your only debuffer, but if you are using him with other debuffers, they will reach max potential. But it also depends on boss behavior. If a boss uses Defy Weakness in between its actions, well, debuffing may not be the best idea because, well, if it uses Defy Weakness because you just debuff it too much, it will remove your debuffs, get back to original status, and maybe use High Intelligence to apply ailments on you, or do more damage. But if a boss design uses Defy Weakness or any other type of skill to remove debuffs on the end of turn, Paulus shines. But Paulus is also extremely reliant on the type of damage that you are doing with your other characters. Even if he works by himself, look, World Crasher is debuffing Dexterity and Agility by 30%, that's a very good volley. But, well, sometimes you don't need to debuff Agility, but maybe you need to debuff Dexterity, right? Well, you will have to rely on the chases, but again, you can get your other debuffs by the characters in the party. And if they have multi-hits, well, you are going to debuff so much. For example, Paulus can be used together or does compete with Xiao as well. Because Xiao has her skill number 3, Purple Sadness Rain, that debuffs Dexterity and Intelligence. Well, Xiao has chase attacks. That means that Xiao will always debuff the value from her skills, but also at least double times with Indirect. Another 10% debuff because of Paulus alone. There's one thing about Paulus, he prefers to be paired up with people that attack instead of just using support skill. Of course, when we are talking about Matriarch, Matriarch still helps Paulus because Paulus will benefit from buffs when he is attacking. And Matriarch is a very useful style. It's okay to have one full support in the party. But if you are using too many supports, like for example the combo of Matriarch and Liz does not attack, you are losing the chance of debuffing with your Liz, since she was just using Dragon's Blessing. So he prefers to be used together with Enya instead, because Enya attacks, and Enya will give 5% intelligence and will debuff when she is attacking with any of her indirect attacks. So always keep this in mind. And once more, we prefer to debuff intelligence more often than we want to debuff STR. And we already have good STR debuff with Sucker Strike and also with Meteor Strike. Especially because you can get Meteor Strike for free. It is available in one of his Platinum style. You can see this one here. And you can amplify, and this can debuff 20% STR and intelligence because you can level this to max. It's a triple S power attack with 10 BP cost. He can keep this cycle much like his natural skill tree. He could also inherit Blast Heal to self-heal, but I don't see much reason to. If you are using Paulus, you're going to decrease the damage taken by quite a lot, meaning that you do not need to self-heal this way. And if you're running Matriarch, you will heal with Matriarch. And he still has this other Workling Beat attack that debuffs STR by even higher, that's 30%, but only if the enemy is all about STR and nothing else. You get much more value by debuffing STR by 20 instead and get extra intelligence debuff. Now, he can also be used versus Kazinsi and Real Queen because he has this attack called Seismic Strike in his S style that's available for free and can stun and paralyze. So, useful for remembrance in all cases and scenarios, and can even be the main gimmick of the fight. Now, like I said, he prefers to be used with indirect attackers, and he still needs some intelligence here and there to fix his problems with low intelligence, so he works well with Matriarch since she's fast. He will increase his intelligence before he even attacks, but he will also work well with people like Esper, because this will increase the buff values. He also works well with people like Orlette. Well, they kind of clash sometimes, but Orlette has indirect attacks and her counter is also indirect, meaning that you can get even better debuffs. Orlette already has a gimmick of herself where she can apply Binding Flames, where enemies will self-debuff on start of their turn. So the combination of both together can lead to 0 damage if you can debuff and the enemy only removes debuff by the end of turn. Then he also works well with damage dealers that have multiple attacks like Leon. Also works well with Kihachi, but Kihachi, for example, will be attacking triple times on overdrive, but in other turns she will be attacking just once. People like Urpina also work super fine because Urpina has double hits. Their recent characters that will work well are people like Ziling and Juji, that will also attack multiple times. I think you understand what I'm talking about. So, Paulus is very useful because we also don't have many club users that are good enough in the game, and he works super well for Remembrance. He's a character that will last for the foreseeable future in the meta. He can be used as your main debuffer, and if used together with another debuffer, can make the best debuff strategies, while also just allowing you to do a little extra damage. Paulus is one of the best debuffers for now, and it's just a little hard to use, I would say. Depends heavily on squad composition. I would say that he is OP if you know how to use him, but if you are using him just as his own debuffs without knowing how to combo him well, he may not feel like that, but he does have a very good utility. The last character is Thorpe, and he is a damage dealer but also a tank with support, 130% STR, and then 92% will and 92% endurance. Those are the most important status. He is pretty slow, just 84% agility, and other status don't matter too much for this guy. Now, let's start talking about his passives. He has Savage Slash when attacking. That's the plus version, so he will buff all surviving allies, including himself, STR, by 15%. And at the end of every 5 turns, counting from the start of battle, he will restore the usage of Cry of Valor. That's the skill that we'll be talking about. He will also get 3 BP just to make it easier to use the skill as well. Then when attacked, damage will be reduced by 25%, and then if you resist, it will reduce it by another 40%, and if you resist, there is a chance to evade, 37% chance. And then he has 5 EP per turn and 20% damage potential only. Well, he starts pretty weak, but by buffing STR, he will eventually get to high standards. Skill number 1, Healing Axe. It's a single target slash and blunt attack, 3 BP C power that recovers HP by probably 1.2 thousand. That's just an emergency button if you need extra healing. The second skill is very good. Militant Slash is an AoE fast attack with slash damage that costs just 5 BP, has C power, it's already okay for the damage, but then he buffs all surviving allies, including himself, will by 30%. Okay, 30% is a good value, it will help you decrease chance of being inflicted with ailments. But this also makes him enter a defensive counter stance. But to counter, you need to be hit with direct attacks, right? Not making more sense to have an endurance buff. Actually, no. Will buffs are always better, usually, because ailments are always part of big challenges, and there are physical attacks with chances to apply ailments as well. It would be better to buff both endurance and will, but it's okay to buff will. Then, if he gets directly attacked, he's going to counter with Savage Slash, but not the plus version. It will use the skill rank of Militant Slash. That means that it will buff all surviving allies, including himself, by 25% on max level. Okay, but there's something happening right now in the game that makes no sense. Remember that he uses Savage Slash plus when he's attacking. Okay, but this skill buffs 20% STR for everyone, and it should not trigger by counter. But right now it is triggering when he counters. So he will counter twice, and he will buff 25% and then 20% STR, 45% total for the party when he is directly attacked. So there is some utility in this guy, especially for those that skipped the most broken counter unit in the game, in my opinion, Julian. Because Julian, he will buff STR of everyone by 15% when he gets hit. So that's already okay because he gets hit a lot, and it doesn't matter if it's a direct or indirect attack. He will just buff STR, and when he counters, he also buffs endurance of all surviving allies by 15% too. It has nothing related to will, so you could even say that if you need extra will, Thorpe may help you more than Julian, but Julian's damage is much higher because he also gets his attack boost, and it lasts for 2 turns. The more he gets attacked, the more his damage will increase, and you can even see sometimes he using that Starry Strike for 1 million damage or Starry Rush for 1 million damage as well. And Julian is even more defensive because of his defense boost and Star Liberation. He just won't die easily. So after Julian, the other broken unit will be Yuma Mail. Yuma Mail is even better for AoE. He's better than Thorpe, no questions asked. He counters twice as well, but look on the attack that he uses. It's Blasting Wild Sword. That's B power, slash and blunt. He also buffs STR and Dexterity when he's attacking, and he can buff twice. So in this case, it's 30% because he buffed it twice. And he has Taunt. Julian also has Taunt. Thorpe does not have Taunt. So in this case, I could say that he's probably the third best one. There is also Forneus, that's a very good counter, but he's different. He counters with a spell, it's cold damage, and it's a little more restrict, while those characters will be countering with physical, and many times slash damage just works. Also, in the case of Thorpe, he only counters with slash. Julian are doing slash and pierce damage. And Yuma Mail counters with slash and blunt, so both have double element, and if the enemy resists one element, you can just probably do neutral damage at least. Well, Thorpe is not as good, but can work in replacement, and people that don't have those two can use him for good. And when talking about Remembrance, Thorpe is very useful if counter works there as well. But he still has something else, Cry of Valor. It's a fast support skill that gives guard up very large to allies. For 3 turns, decreasing damage taken by 50%. Okay, it uses 8 BP, but he starts the fight with 10, right? So you can use Cry of Valor on turn 1. Then I suggest you to skip turn 2 and not use anything if you don't have BP generation, because he would not have enough to use Cry of Valor again on turn 4. But let's say Cry of Valor, normal attack, militant slash, Cry of Valor, and goes on and on, because he will get 3 extra BP after every 5 turns and a recharge of Cry of Valor. This will not be forever. You will have these effects lasting for turns 1 to 3, 4 to 6, then 7 to 9, and then turn 10 you don't have it available. And on turn 11 you can use it again. On fights that don't last for too long, he's gonna help a lot by decreasing damage. And he will decrease spell damage as well, buffing will, and he will even counter. So there's a lot of utility to this guy. He's just lacking taunt and maybe double element. And since he's an X user, even if he's not so prime, he still has a place on Remembrance Battle. I don't think that any of his inheritances matter. Well, there is Slash of Terror that can poison Carmine, and nothing else makes much sense, since Savage Slash is, well, C power, to amplify from his premium style. But in that case, I don't think it matters much, since Militant Slash is same power, same cost, and has counter, unless you were using him for farming, something that you should not be doing. So, I believe Thorpe deserves a triple S grade, not as good as some other counters, but very useful where he stands. Now, back to the banner image. Is this banner worth summoning for? Yes, I believe this is one of the best banners we had in the recent times, because Matriarch is a new type of buffer that will stay relevant. Paulus is a very good debuffer, and he can become even better when using with other debuffers or with the right characters. Thorpe is a strong support for X Remembrance, but can also work outside. Now back to the banner image. Is this banner worth summoning for? In my opinion, yes. I will be giving this a gold award. We have here meta buffer, OP debuffer, and a very good support for Remembrance, but can also work as replacement for Julian or Human Mail as your counter specialists. Well, I pulled it on the banner and got Matriarch and Paulus. Had to skip Thorpe because I don't have enough gens, but since I already have Julian, I am fine. Since the tier list is now on hold for the current moment, I was also thinking about maybe changing the grading system, and I want to gather some feedback. If we were using a 5.0 max grade, I would say that Matriarch is a 5 out of 5. Paulus will be a 4.5 out of 5, and Thorpe will be a 4 out of 5. What do you think about this? Please say here in the comment section. I wish you good luck on your pulls. Thanks for watching. If you want to support the channel, we have links on the description of the video. I hope to see you soon in the next video or live stream. Bye.